Chris Riddell, thanks for joining us on Blue
Pleasure.
Notes. Now, one of the things that you talk a lot about is how the customer's needs are changing on a daily basis, and you actually can't outrun the speed of digital. So for an organisation like a bank or incumbents, how do you make sure that you are able to retain and acquire new customers when you've got all of these disruptors chasing you down?
Really good question, and it's one of the most important questions that certainly banks need to be asking themselves at the moment. And where it really comes down to is experiences. You need to be providing incredible experiences, not just offline, but online as well. So through mobile apps, this is where consumers are really demanding something special. I think we're really positioned well. We've seen incredible innovation stories coming from within the banking and financial services industry in Australia. I genuinely believe that we're actually leading the pack in many ways here in the region. I think we've got to continue to keep on focusing on experiences. Customers' relationship with banks is more fragile than it's ever been, and how are you going to set yourself apart from your competition? It's about making things easy and simple and keeping it all online.
On that line of thought, talking about mobile, now Australia has the highest penetration of mobile around the world, 114%. Smartphone is at 70%. How are we so far behind when it comes to mobile payments? And what are we expecting to see over the next few months in that space? Because around the world, you can see that they've progressed a lot further.
This is a really interesting one. Telstra, Optus, Vodafone, they've been battling out for the consumer, investing heavily in their networks here in Australia. 4G speeds here are the highest in the world that we have here in Australia. Compared to the UK, they are way behind the bell curve on this one. So what that's done is, because the infrastructure's been there, that allows an experience that people, when they get their smartphone out of their pocket, it works and it's fast and it does what they want. People are buying smartphones and they're reinvesting in that technology time and time again. To answer your question then around how has banking not kept up with this, that's really interesting. I think this is down to legislation. Legislation, government, they're struggling to keep up. Financial services as an industry has steeped in legislation and rules. The challenge for the industry is how to be able to keep up in a world that is so volatile and high velocity, when the technology is now actually overtaking that legislation. When the US launched Apple Pay, when the iPhone 6 came out, millions of people subscribed up to that service in the first couple of days. This is what consumers want, and we've got to provide it to them to be able to keep up. It's not a case of if, it's a case of when.
Data is a really important area. When Google started many years ago, we all thought it was just supposed to be a search engine, but really it's about collecting data and analysing it.
It is.
Who else is doing this really, really well, and what's next?
I think lots of organisations and industries are trying to get to grips with how to use data and what they should be doing with it. Financial services is certainly one area that is really trying to dig deep and find out how to use data, because you guys are collecting data on a phenomenal basis and have been for years. I mean, the analogy I often talk about to clients is a bank knows who your employer is, they know where you go on holiday, they know who your mobile phone company is, they know how much you get paid, they know all of this different stuff about you. And we're now starting to see financial institutions actually start to work out how they can use that data to advantage. Another industry that's doing this at the moment is actually retail. The large supermarket chains with their loyalty programs are now digging deep to find out how they can really use data to drive insights and find out what you want before you even know what you want. It's a really interesting insight there into how you can use data to drive insights about the future, and that's what we're going to continue to see.
Wow, that's a little bit scary, isn't
it just? I think the challenge for us is people are a bit fearful around what data they should be letting go and how they should share it. But here's the thing, at the moment we have an incredible amount of television advertising. You sit down in the evening and you watch The Block or any of your home reno shows or MasterChef, and you get advertising every 10 minutes or so. And how much of that's actually relevant to you? I'd say probably 80% is irrelevant, and it's just a load of noise and it's boring and you can switch the channel. The TV industry now, moving away from this analog world we live in, they know who's sat in front of that television. With things like Netflix, they know who's logged in, who's watching that television. They can deliver you personalized content if they want. So they know your name, your age, your profile, who you are. Imagine a world where, based on the data you shared with them, they actually deliver you advertising that is of interest. I think that's exciting rather than scary, and I think that's the world we're going to be going into.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Take care.